Hello and welcome to Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. I'm Brenda and today we're starting a new series called Playing with Traditional Blocks. Now I've got some good tips for you on how to do some old-fashioned traditional piecing that is small enough that you can use your little scraps or crumbs. But first I want to talk to you about Jana and Jana's Quilting. Her YouTube channel is she's got a very interesting voice on her YouTube channel, and you guys have got to go check her out. But when you do, tell her Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore sent you. Okay, and we also have a Facebook group link, and we may or may not have our Zoom link for our next month's sew date. I'm not sure when we're filming this, whether we've decided or not, so I can't necessarily put a Zoom link in. So, come on in. We have so much fun sewing to do today, and this is the kickoff of our playing with traditional blocks. Okay, here we go with all our pieces. Now, yes, it's the 3/8, it's the 7/8, it's, you know, now, instead of the 2 3/8, you could cut 2 1/2, then sew them and then trim them down. Or like with this, you know, it's like this one is 3 7/8. You could go 4 inches and then, you know, do your double sewing or whatever. Now, it's up to you how you want to handle this. You're going to be trimming it down if you cut it too large. So with mine, I've cut them the right size. Now, traditionally, what they do, should probably put it like this, so the right sides are together. Traditionally, what they do is they pin this in place, and I'll just move this, and then they take a magic wand like this, and they line it up perfectly on that from point to point. They mark their seam and then they sew their seam. Well, you don't have to do that. You really don't have to do that. When you're doing those little piecing like this, you just take a ruler or a rotary cutter like that. You cut it, and then you've got 2 big triangles that you run through. Very simple, right? Now you also, I'm going to suggest, if you prefer to run half square triangles through versus the little piecing, you know, this kind of piecing, you know, where you're drawing going across twice, that's entirely up to you. But here we go. I'm just going to cut all these in half, and they're much easier to handle. Now I've got 2 different blues in this block, but they're almost the same value because I was pulling from my scraps. There. Now, the other thing, I have on a 1/4 inch foot. Now, not everybody likes a 1/4 inch foot, and there's some reasons why people love them, and there's reasons why people hate them. Well, part of the problem is when people are lining them up to sew, they're pushing their fabric too far in this way, and then the fabric curls up into the foot area because there's a little plow on this side. Now, there's all sorts of different 1/4 inch foots out there, and you pick one that you like. If you're just using a regular foot, or you just want to kiss that 1/4 inch line, because that will give you your scant 1/4 inch. And you don't want to push. All you're doing now is steering these little half square triangles through. Now, when you're doing smaller piecing, that's important, right? Because if you're working with your scraps, sometimes you don't have big pieces to work with. So you gotta have a plan as to what you're going to do. Now, the cutting instructions for this block are all in the show notes, right? So they're handy for everybody. And I'm just lining them up just like a triangle. And you do quite a few of these little triangles. But you don't push. All you're doing is you're kissing that 1/4 inch line, because I line mine up on my foot. Oops, that's the wrong way. I line mine up with my foot, just with my foot, so I'm kissing that 1/4 inch line on my machine, because that one is a good 1/4 inch. That will give me a good scant 1/4 inch, right? And then I'm not worrying about all this stuff. But you can, if you're working with scraps and your scraps aren't really big, you know, you can make this out of all sorts of, I would suggest you stay within the same color family for the block, but you don't have to. You can put any colors together that you want. if they make you happy, that's what you should use. So, but this is a very traditional one for scraps, and it's perfect for scraps because you have bigger ones and littler ones, and you know, because not all of our scraps are big, you know, big enough to work with. So now, there we go. This out there. That's a quick enough block to do. This block is also really good for leader and ender projects. These blocks are just great because you have oodles of little half square triangles, and you can cut them with that easy angle ruler, and then they're just easier to work with, right? But, and the last one, and I've got a little crumb bit that I'm going to put together here. Oh, no, there we go. Oof. There. Just to put two crumbs together, just to line them up and throw them together as a leader ender. I'm working through my crumb basket, and I'm having quite the little task of doing these. Now, you trim these. Now, some people just cut off like this, right? So they're cutting it off at a right angle. I tend to go in a little bit further just because I don't want a bunch of bulk. I don't want a bunch of bulk at that seam, right? So now I'm just going to cut in a little bit. I'm going to leave a good 1/8 of an inch where I turn, right? Like where that stitching line meets. And I'm just going to do that with all of these. Hang on. I know this is kind of boring to watch. Now, there's all sorts of tests you can do to see if you've got a good 1/4 inch. Because the more little piecing you do with your scraps, because, you know, people don't realize that, you know, the more little piecing, the more your scant 1/4 inch must be perfect. And when they get into smaller piecing, it's a matter of, okay, does this work? Does that work? You know, and it's kind of a weird thing. But if your 1/4 inch isn't good, you know, you're let's say it needs to go on a diet and it's a little chubby on the chubby side, that means that your 1/4 inch, you need to thin it out a bit, right? And there's tests. Now, the easiest test to do is to take 6 1.5 inch strips, and they only need to be like 3 inches long, or 6.5 inches long if you want to make a square. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew them so that they're all pieced together. Now, in that 6.5 inch, you're going to press open, because sometimes when you're doing smaller blocks, you need that press open to give you that extra thread for the turn of the cloth, right? Now, and then you'll measure it to see if it's actually 6.5 inch, and whether or not your bars, because you're using 1.5 inch, or whether or not they're all that 1/4 inch size. I missed the blue. Okay, there we go. So now to line these up, okay, I'm just going to line them up real quick. And you sew these. You sew them into quadrants, and you have 8 little half square triangles going that way, and you press to the dark, and you're like this, and you're like press to the dark, and you're like this. Oops, okay, we'll get the rest of these. There we go. Can you see what I'm doing here? I'm pressing them. Oh, I'm pressing them. I'm pressing them like that. And I just got like 4 more to do, or 3 more to do. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put together these little units here. That's the first thing you're going to do. It makes everything flow together much easily. So there's your Flock of Geese block. Let's see if I can. No, I can't get it all in. Okay. So there's your Flock of Geese. Now, you're just going to line them up. Just very gently lining them up. And they're all going to go through the sewing machine the same way. I say this is a really great scrap buster. And then a lot of these smaller traditional blocks, they were devised to use up scraps because our grandmothers and great-grandmothers did not go out and buy fabric the way we do in fat quarter bundles, and they just had to use what they had on hand. And that was all there was to it. Okay, another little crumb block gets put together. So I can get my stuff off of here. There. Okay, so now we open these up. Now the geese, the dark, is all going to point the same direction. So one you fold one way, and the other one you fold the other way. Right? So here, I'll show you from behind. So one I'm folding this way, and the other one I'm folding that way. So now this point will nest, right? So when I do the same with the ones below, one goes this way, and one goes the other way. So now you want to make that block, and then we want to finish that block nice. And you line up your edge really good. Now here is if you're working with a really small fabric or a small piecing like this and you feel uncomfortable, you get one stitch past and you drop your needle and you line up the other end. Okay, let's do that again. So you line this up, you take your time lining this up, and you get it just perfect. There. And now, oh, that goes up, right? Okay. So the bottom one is going this way, that seam is going this way, and the top one is going that way. So now you just line that up. You get it all perfect. You line it up and you get one stitch past with the needle down, and then you line up the end. And you don't let go. And if you have to start sewing with the stiletto, so be it. Because they're kind of a godsend. And another leader ender goes through. I know people have asked me not to do leader enders because they found it confusing. But guys, I make charity quilts. I'm constantly throwing something under my needle just to make it happen. So that's the unit you get. Now, I can take the back and pop open that seam so it spins. So now, not only is it flat in the center, there we go, I'm just going to finger press that flat, you have it lying nice, and this part lies nice and flat, and it's now just the bulk is distributed. So here again, I'm going to grab one end and grab the other and just break that seam open if I can. Okay, break the seam open just like that. And sometimes it needs a little help. And you don't have to manhandle it usually too much, but you know, it is what it is today. And there we go. Just like that. Here, finger press, and there you go. Now, we're going to sew this in just like we would a regular 4-patch, right? So, I'm going to take the first two, slip that under. There we go. Now, I'm going to show you another little trick. If this was, like, you would try and mark your X here, right? There's an X where the sewing goes. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. And you don't want to lose that point, because that would be bad. That would be nothing but bad. Okay, and another piece of, and another crumb goes through. And then we open this up. There we go. That's starting to look really good. Okay, let's start this way. There. Now I'm trying to make this nest so that the center point nest. There we go. And now I want to make sure that this works. There we go. And let me run another crumb. Yeah, I know. All you do is run crumbs through. I know. I went through my reds and oranges and I mined a whole bunch of hexes. So now I'm going to break this again, this little 4-patch again, and it kind of comes out as a weird little funky two-sided pinwheel. That's perfect. And then I'm just going to press this, just finger press it just a bit, just to get it in the right shape. And hopefully when I turn it over we have a wonderful ta-da moment. And yes, we do. Let's get to that ta-da moment. So here's our little flock of geese. Now isn't this just cute? I use the same value of blue, but it's basically 2 different types of blue fabric in here. And I stuck with a plain white fabric. Now this just came together like a charm. And it helps you use up those tiny bits that you don't quite know what to do with. That's why that easy angle ruler would have been, if you have a bunch of really small bits and you had to make lots of these units, that ruler would save you a lot of time. But that's, but this is the traditional piecing, and we are giving you the cutting instructions for the traditional piecing. It's this one was a wonderful little scrap buster, and it just looks so lovely when you put it on point. It looks like 2 fish kissing in the middle, right? So anyways, I hope you have a delightful week ahead, and just everything in your sewing room goes right for you, and you don't run out of fabric, and you win Bob and Chicken a few times. That would be good. But you take care. In the meantime, we'll see you later. Bye! My husband and I would love to thank you for coming along with us on our quilting journey and the YouTube adventure that we're on. We have some wonderful plans for 2023. And it includes a lot more, like with the Facebook group and the rooms feature and sewing and hanging out with people. Those monthly Zoom sew dates are still in the works. We have a lot of fun ideas coming up for 2023, and we hope you share, like, and subscribe with your friends. That little notification button and subscribing to us really helps us out. Commenting helps us out too. So if you like what you're seeing, let us know. Even send us a heart on the comment. That helps so much for us. Okay, you have an absolutely fabulous 2023, and all of our best wishes for you in the future. Okay, take care. Bye.